outside the campus of the Jawaharlal Nehru University. Media personnel who'd been, of course, gathered there to cover the protests have now been assaulted outside the JNU campus. Those are some of the visuals that you see where media personnel were being pushed and shoved around. We're trying to kind of ascertain the identity of the people responsible for this as to who was actually heckling the media outside the JNU campus. But the people out there were, of course, just trying to do their job, covering the protests that had broken out last night at JNU over the screening of the controversial BBC documentary. And Madhav joins us for some more details on this. Madhav, what can you tell us about the news coming in that certain media personnel were heckled and shoved around outside JNU last night?
Well, one thing is very clear, Siddharth, that while there is an entire debate surrounding issues pertaining to freedom of speech, what about the freedom of speech of this particular reporter who's with the Janam TV news channel, which is a news channel from Kerala? It is a Malayalam language channel, a regional channel at that. And if there were those who disagreed with the views of this particular channel, was it correct for them to heckle the journalist the way they were? And in one case, even physically assault him, as is seen in these visuals. You know, these are extremely shocking pictures, which once again go to show the contradictions that are quite inherent in the positions that have been taken by protesters. Remember, just this morning we had seen, for instance, how a senior Congress leader, Mr. Antony's son, Mr. Anil Antony, who works with the social media unit of the state there in Kerala, has come out to talk about how when he expressed his own views within the party forum, he was heckled, he was harassed, and therefore he has decided to quit the party. Now, in similar vein, if those who are not in agreement with the students' union there in JNU, if they are expressing their views or reporting a situation, is it correct for those who disagree to physically assault or to heckle this individual? That is a very important question that comes out of this heckling of the journalist who goes by the name of Gowtham and is with the Janam TV channel. And these visuals certainly raise that question as to what exactly is going on as far as these particular students are concerned. The identity of these students, of course, is to be yet to be very clearly established. But what we are given to understand by the journalists concerned is that they are associated with the JNU Students Union.
Madhav, of course, we can't jump to conclusions about their identities, and we'll wait for the police, and once an official complaint is lodged, to in fact get some perspective on their identities. But if they were attacking a journalist from the state of Kerala, reporting for Janam TV, which is of course a regional channel, then were these students also from the state of Kerala, because they'd presumably know the kind of content that Janam TV airs?
Well, yes, absolutely. And in fact, Siddharth, that's a very pertinent point that you made. If you look at this audio of this particular visual, then there are certainly students who in the Malayalam language are calling the Janam TV journalist and his channel a fascist, saying that these are views of fascists, and it's that line that is being taken and repeatedly being used by several of those who are protesting at that particular location. So this is a very important fact. In fact, we very shortly will also be getting you the views of this journalist who can, in the first hand, explain what exactly were the facts, what exactly were the circumstances surrounding this particular attack on him that took place. Because if you very clearly see, here is a journalist who's actually doing his job. He is reporting what has happened, and if there was any kind of factual inaccuracy even in what he is saying, is this the manner in which people should be protesting and taking up their points of view or registering their protest with a journalist? That is a very important fact that comes out of this entire incident. And certainly, of course, at this point of time, we do, of course, hope that even to this particular incident, the students or whoever is concerned or is seen in that particular people is taken to task.
And of course, the journalist was just doing his job. There were about 3 or 4 people who then immediately surrounded him and tried to shove him and were also heckling at him at the time that this incident took place. Madhav, any update on whether or not the journalist now intends to pursue this by filing a formal complaint before the authorities or the police?
Well, I think that has not been ruled out at this point of time. What legal course of action is taken by the journalist concerned and by his organization remains to be seen. But yes, certainly, of course, legal action is a very distinct possibility, is what we understand at this point of time. Because I think these visuals speak for themselves and they highlight the gravity of the situation. That on the one hand, you cannot be, protesting on an issue related to freedom of speech, and at the same time being seen to throttle another individual who, by the very same constitution, enjoys the rights as you. That individual's freedom of speech, in this manner at least, cannot be scuttled or throttled. is the very important message coming out of these visuals. Back to you, Siddharth.
Okay, so these protests, of course, being reported outside the JNU campus. This took place late last night, where there were protests underway over the screening of the controversial documentary that's been produced by the BBC on Prime Minister Modi. The second part has been released by the BBC in the United Kingdom late yesterday. And when there was an attempt on the part of certain students to screen this documentary, and of course media was reporting on these protests, that's when this particular incident took place outside the JNU campus last night. This journalist happened to be from Janam TV, a regional channel in the state of Kerala, and he was also being abused at the time that these visuals actually were brought to you on air in Malayalam by some of those protesters. So it remains to be seen as to whether or not this journalist now takes this up with the authorities and files a formal complaint to initiate some kind of action against those who tried to abuse him and physically manhandle him at the time that he was just doing his job, reporting on the protests at the Jawaharlal Nehru University campus. So these are the visuals from last night. Today, of course, there have been protests at the Jamia Millia Islamia campus as well. We did have Rishabh as well as Mayank report from outside the campus today to update us on the state of affairs there, where students are not being allowed to go in, nor are students actually being allowed to come out. The gates have been locked. So these are the visuals that you see from last night at the Jawaharlal University campus, where a journalist had been heckled by certain students. He was from Janam TV. He was simply doing his job, reporting on the protests, and he's now, of course, safe, but we are yet to find out as to whether or not he'll take this up with the authorities to report on what actually took place yesterday. So the word fascist can actually be heard. There are people speaking in Malayalam, abusing this gentleman in Malayalam while he's just doing his job. This happened last night outside the JNU campus, where he was reporting on the protests that had taken place near the campus over the screening of the documentary. And it is during this reportage that a bunch of students could be seen abusing him in Malayalam and also hurling the word fascist at him. And this is a clear case of manhandling, Madhav, as we can see on the screen. Not only are they abusing him, one person actually approached him and tried to push him away from the spot, and the journalist can be seen trying to defend himself. And of course there are other protesters who come at the scene and try to, of course, shield him from the protesters abusing him.
Absolutely, and in fact, the entire question that this incident raises, and it's a very shocking kind of incident. While journalists, in this kind of a situation, of course, do often get caught up in the crossfire, this does not seem to be any kind of inadvertent incident or inadvertent, kind of pushing and pulling that seems to have taken place. It is very much attempted at targeting the individual, and while one may, peacefully use any means to protest, heckling certainly is not acceptable, and neither is any kind of physical touch or assault of an individual who is just performing his basic duties. While one may not agree with what that individual believes in or what that organization believes in that the individual is associated with, certainly this kind of behavior is not acceptable under any circumstances, whichever be the news organization and whichever be the political party or students' union that the students may be, or the person seen in that video may be associated with. That's the message going out. As you rightly said, the word fascist being repeatedly bandied around by several of those protesters there, and of course in that bid to target this individual appear to have gone perhaps a few steps too far.
Okay, Madhav, now if we talk about the two versions that have been coming to light, both the ABVP and the JNU Students' Union wing have been trading charges at each other, and this is a shocking video that has now come to light of a journalist being beaten up, and fascist